We still don't have a name.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what's he gonna call it? Oh shit. We don't give a fuck. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, welcome to Scott and Skip Don't Give a Fuck. Or Skip and Scott. You're the boss here. You're the senior to me. So I think if that's the name of the show, it's Skip and Scott Don't Give a Fuck. And I don't think I want my mom to watch this show if that's the name, just because she doesn't like that language.
Just use an asterisk. Don't spell out fuck. Use an asterisk, a pound
Ah.
sign, an exclamation point, things like that.
Yeah. So what's going on, man? What's new?
Well, I mean, you can tell how great I look.
Well, you don't. You look a lot better than you did in your Facebook picture the other day.
That's true. The swelling has gone down. I look better, believe it or not, than I feel.
Okay.
This is just a byproduct of me being
Lazy?
yeah, basically. I don't want to say I'm depressed,
Yeah.
but I might be a little bit. I'm a little beat up. Psychologically, I'm a little beat up.
Okay.
I don't know what you guys talked about on the show. I missed I think it's the only one I've missed, but the Blood, Sweat, and Gear, show on Monday because I had that reaction to lisinopril on Thursday or Friday of last week. And
We talked about you. We talked about you mostly.
Cool. All right, yeah, with the entire show, I hope.
Yeah.
Me and the cats.
And the cats. There were some cougar clips. Scott said it was either your cat scratched you or that your wife beat you up and that you didn't want to admit it. It was one of the two.
I did get the wife beat up thing on Facebook a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is, if my wife ever hit me, I think this was my response. If my wife ever did hit me, it would have been a lot worse than that reaction.
Mrs. Skip's got a good right hook, huh?
Yeah, she's a bad bitch.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't have any idea that lisinopril, I didn't know that anything like that would happen. I just was completely unaware of it.
Okay.
So not only did I deal with, I just woke up in the morning and I say in the morning, I went to bed at 5:00 that morning because I go to bed late. I work late. I got up about 9:30 to take a piss, and I thought, well, right here on my mouth was a little thick and kind of numb, and I thought, oh, great, I'm getting a cold sore.
Yeah.
Which would be in line with, the stresses I've been dealing with and things. So I thought, oh, great. Took a piss, went back to bed. And when I woke up about 12:30, I just thought, God, my face feels really tight. But, you're half asleep. You don't give it too much thought. I'm like, God, my lips feel all puffy. And I looked in the mirror and I was just horrified. I was like, what it literally just woke me out of my sleep. And I say sleep, I obviously wasn't sleeping, but you're half, dead.
Right.
And I just I couldn't believe what I saw. The whole right side of my face, the right side of my lips, it was actually pulling my fucking nose over because it was so tight. And of course, Melissa comes into the bathroom. I'm like, you need to come in here.
Yeah.
And her response was so soothing. Oh my fucking God, you got to go to the hospital right now. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's not that. No, you're supposed to be like, oh,
the calm
yeah, that
one,
doesn't
right?
look very good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm out in the middle of fucking nowhere. I'm looking outside right now. There's nothing. A hospital's 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, the side of my face is swollen out. No, I probably ate something. I did. Right. I ate. What the hell do you think, right? Or actually, if I'm being honest, I thought to myself, great, I just caused myself a giant Copenhagen tumor because I've been chewing so much. Your brain kind of goes with weird shit when you're worried.
Several years ago, you would have been thinking it was something in the trend.
Right. Yeah. Basically, I'd be checking my kidneys to see if they're, sticking out the right. But yeah. And so, I knew, clearly, which was kind of nice. I didn't cut to gear, which was kind of a nice.
That would have been like my first thought, like, oh fuck, what's shutting down on me?
What did I dose yesterday? Because whatever it is, it's bad shit.
Right.
So yeah, I'm my mind is racing, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? And you saw the picture on Facebook. Hell, that was after I had taken 2 outdated Benadryls, and it was an hour later. It had started to come down.
You don't have any fresh Benadryl at your house? You just have outdated?
No, it's like 2011.
Oh
I know.
God.
It's expensive shit. I can only afford outdated
I live off that stuff. I'm not going to lie. I take Benadryl lately, like almost every night. I know it's not ideal, but it helps me sleep. So
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, I do like 50 to maybe 100 milligrams a night. So we've got like fresh Benadryl always. Like I have
Nice.
backup Benadryl behind that
Well, not only
Benadryl.
was it outdated, but it was generic. So I'm looking at it going, yeah, I'm pretty much going to fucking die.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty
This is
sure.
like 2 milligrams right now.
Yeah. When in reality, the way I understand it, the doctor backed this up too. The expiration dates on a lot of that stuff are just arbitrary. They're on there because they have to be on there by law.
Yes.
But that apparently oral medication like that loses very little.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Outside
Same
of like
thing.
antibiotics, that's the only one that can
Yeah.
be kind of funky.
Exactly. So I took a couple Benadryl, and I'm a guy, so I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm good. I'm just, a little swollen. I ate something, but then I'm running over my head, and I'm like, I didn't eat anything any different than I have before. I didn't have any weird. I'm like, I'm 47 years old. I didn't all of a sudden wake up with an allergy to peanuts. So I'm running it over. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, God, the only thing I think of is I didn't take my lisinopril for a couple days, and then I took it, in my regular dose, which is only 10 milligrams. This isn't a massive dose of lisinopril. So
lisinopril, that's pretty tiny, isn't it?
yeah, it's not 10 milligrams is probably below. I'd say average is probably 20 milligram if I had to guess, at least in my limited experience. But I've been taking it for 3 months.
Very interestingly, I literally last week got my prescription for lisinopril, 10 milligrams. I haven't started it yet. I figured it wouldn't be a good time to start it, like right at the end of a prep and everything. But yeah, that's my game plan, is to start it, and now I'm terrified. Thank you.
Or right after your partner on your podcast almost dies.
Right.
So I'm not worried. I'm not really thinking at this point that there's anything, but I know that something is really wrong. And Melissa made a statement that I didn't even think of. And she's like, if it gets to your tongue or if it gets in your throat, you're going to be in a world of shit. And that's when I kind of thought, and I could feel it. Actually, it was weird. I could feel that it was moving. Not only when I woke up at 9, there was hardly anything there. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, but it was clearly moving across my face in this direction. And I could feel it was moving to the left side. So I'm thinking it's not just sitting here, not doing it. And the odd thing was I hadn't taken my lisinopril dose in almost 24 hours. I was due for another dose. So it's not like I just took it 2 hours ago and then all of a sudden had this reaction. So I was struggling with that, but I thought, you know what? I'm too far from a hospital. So if my tongue starts swelling, I'm not terribly bright. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but logically it just was kind of, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to go to the ER and find out what the fuck's going on.
Dude, that was a smart move.
Yeah, it was. And, then you get to the ER and, I wrote an article about this for Elite FTS. It won't be out for a couple weeks, but I did this because it ended up being that they were convinced that it was related to the lisinopril. So I did that because I think if I didn't know that there was this potential reaction, I don't think a lot of people know that. So when I came home, I learned about lisinopril and angioedema, which is essentially the technical. You call it an allergic reaction, but it was angioedema. So I learned a lot about it over that next 24 hours because I was scouring the internet trying to come up with as much information as I could. And it's some scary shit. It never did get to my throat or my tongue. But, I get to the ER too, which is another bitch that even when you have good insurance these days, and especially when you pay your bills and you care about your credit, right? You actually have to take into consideration, am I going to sit here in the ER for the next 5 hours on an IV drip that is going to give me Benadryl and prednisone when I can take those orally and get the fuck out of here in 30 minutes because it had already started to subside? And a lot of angioedema, from what I have read and come across, doesn't necessarily always respond to antihistamines.
Really?
Yeah, so mine did. So I was fortunate in that sense. But they also put me on prednisone, which, we don't have enough time to talk about how that fucked my head up. But anyway,
I can only imagine.
I had no idea until early this morning when I was just like, why is my head so fucked around? I mean, I'm literally thinking like I'm depressive. Like I haven't showered in 3 days. Never mind that I don't go anywhere. I haven't been training, so I haven't been going anywhere. I run to the school 2 miles up the road and pick up my kids after sport. That's about the extent of it. And I'm like, this is just terrible. My mouth is raw from chewing. I eat once a day. It's just been borderline depressive. And then so go on the internet, and sure as shit, there's a link between prednisone and cognitive ability and depressive symptoms. I'm like, well, thank you, because I was starting to wonder why I feel like ass in my head. Never
Yeah.
mind that I've had quite a few obstacles this year that I've struggled with having to pull out of the show and health issues, things like that.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
just
Dude,
seems like
I could imagine it feeling like just one thing after the next at this point.
it really has felt, and people have said that to me, and I'm kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, but it has beat me up more than I have let on.
I
You know,
imagine.
everything else in my life is fine. You know, my marriage is good, my business is good. This new business is going to the marketing team on Monday and is going really well, which it doesn't have anything to do with bodybuilding, so it doesn't matter. But there's just a lot of good thing. My son is doing well. I don't have anything to be depressive about. And
Yeah.
when you start to feel like that psychologically, that you're just fucking beat down, you don't really want to talk about it, because there are people around you with legitimate depressive shit. You know, they're either going through relationship issues, marriage issues, financial issues, legit health concerns or injuries where they don't know if they're going to be able to train again. Just things, and you as guys, we just go, meh, you know, no one wants to hear it. And, you know, what do you have to be depressed about is in the back of your mind too. So it's been tough. It's part of the reason I haven't shaved. I did manage to brush my teeth, which is always a bonus, because, you know, not that I'm going to see anybody or they're going to smell my rotten ass old man breath, but you just feel better about yourself when you take a fucking shower
Oh
and you
God, yeah.
brush. Yeah. So it was a long weekend. The prednisone dosing was high because it was only for 4 days. So I'm sure it's been playing on my brain. I haven't taken it the last couple of days because I'm done taking it. So I'm hoping in the next couple of days, you know, I feel better. I actually canceled, which I'm sure doesn't help. You know, my wife's birthday this weekend. We're supposed to go to New York City for a long weekend, Thursday to Monday.
Oh yeah,
Had
that's right.
Yeah, I had Yankees tickets, first row for the Toronto Blue Jays game. Had a hotel in Times Square. You know, there was a show in Manhattan, which is why we were going. It just happened to coincide with my wife's birthday.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's only if the IRS asks. No, and had to cancel that at the last minute because I'm in no place to go. I mean, I'm blown up like a puffer fit. I feel like shit. I'm hardly sleeping. Because I quit taking the Benadryl, which I probably could have continued to take, but I felt like a fucking zombie. So it's just been rough. I don't want to, you know, go into this depressive hole and talk about how miserable my life is, because it's not. But I am struggling, and sometimes it does feel like it's one fucking thing this year, one fucking thing after another. But you know, that's life too. It just is what it is. You fucking deal with it. The alternative is you put a gun in your mouth.
Right. Dude, listen, a couple of things, man. I think, first of all, I can totally relate to that. I've had times where, like, I've ended up getting hurt, and then after one injury, I get better, and then I get sick. And then and you just feel like the deck's stacked against you.
Right.
So I can totally relate to what you're talking about, A. But then B, I mean, I feel like what's happening with you is chemically related. And probably because of this medication you're taking, but it also reminds me though of like people who have legitimate, like, just mental problems where like somebody has clinical depression, because like you're looking for a reason. You're like, well, my life is good, there's no reason for me to feel this way. You know, that's the same thing with people who have like real clinical depression. I mean,
Right.
obviously you're taking a medication, so that makes total sense why this is happening. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it reminds me of the same situation where people are like, you know, I don't have any reason to feel down, and then they don't acknowledge it. It doesn't mean that it isn't real, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
Just as real as if you did have something going on, man. So I feel for you, brother. I do, and I hope
I appreciate that.
I hope it tightens up and comes back together quick, and I hope you can get back in the gym and start training soon, because I feel like, I don't know about you, but when I can get in the gym and train, I always feel better.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and there's a direct relationship with the fact that I'm not training and I'm not feeling very good, because it will help to counter it. You know, the other part about depression I think is kind of funny is, and it's not funny, funny is a bad word, I guess, but, you know, you talk about the chemical imbalance. Clearly, I don't think depression is necessarily caused by life situations. I think it's exacerbated by it. I think people can have a chemical imbalance and they can function fine and not seem or feel depressed. But then when things start to pile on, then it kind of comes out. It just tends to exacerbate and make the problem worse. So, I'm not training. Even when I'm training, it's inconsistent. I'm having health problems. Things just start to pile on, and then you start to be like, oh, it's because of this or it's because of that. When in reality, who knows? Maybe I have dealt with, or other people deal with that chemical imbalance, even if it's slight. But then life events kind of pile on, and that's what really brings it out. And you almost, I know I've just felt overwhelmed. Sure. I have felt not hopeless. Hopeless is a different type of depression. I certainly haven't felt hopeless, but I do wonder how I would feel if everything just continues to go shitty. What if my marriage wasn't good? What if my business wasn't good? What if my finances weren't solid? I think it can kind of snowball quickly. And I sympathize with anybody who has some real shit they're dealing with, because I don't have a lot of that right now.
Well, listen,
I'm still struggling.
This is a total change of topic. I want to show you something. This is my my drinking cup. Do you know what this is?
Well, it's actually, it's a gelato cup.
Yes, it is.
Very good one. Colorado based.
Are they? These guys are out of Colorado?
Yeah.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Quick little story. My wife is a property manager for high-end commercial and residential buildings or community, whatever you want to call it, for big companies. And when she worked at I won't name it because it doesn't matter anyway, but she worked at a specific property about 4 years ago, and the girl who started that business lived there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they do make gelato. They also make sorbet, which is Scott Stevenson's #1 carb up source of fuel.
Really?
Oh yeah, Scott loves sorbet. He's like the sorbet guy, and it works really good. I like sorbet. It's so light, and it's just like pure sugar. I know that John Meadows was saying that he was eating 1 container of sorbet per night for the last 5 nights of one of his carb ups for his shows.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a ton of carbs in there, but nonetheless, I wanted to point that out for Scott Stevenson. Well, I told him one day, I was like, Scott, since I've been eating sorbet, I can't throw the containers away because they're so nice. It's like this hard plastic cup. I would feel bad just like using this, tossing it, and buying another one. So I've just saved them. And he does the same thing. He said he saves them, and that like you use them for measuring contain. This is 2 cups exactly. That's what you got right here. So I also use it for my measuring cups. I'll store stuff in these things, and I've got like a dozen of them now. They're just kind of floating around. And I just realized I'm sitting here on the show, and I'm drinking out of a sorbet container. So
mix up Tren.
Yeah, you really it's plastic, so I don't know if you want to mix Tren in there.
I think people mix up shit in far worse than that. What's your go-to flavor for?
Dude, it's a toss-up. I love the raspberry and mango. That's the other one.
Okay.
What about yourself?
Well, I don't do the sorbet. That's a little too light for Skip. Not that gelato is terribly heavy compared to, say, Ben and Jerry's, but I'm the predictable salted caramel. You give me anything with salted caramel, and I'm gonna just shove it in my pie hole.
I've never tried that in my life. Every time I've seen it, I've thought about it. I see it it's right next to the other flavors, obviously, and I think to myself, Do I want to risk it on this? Because I don't know what it's like. Never tried it, so it's that good, huh?
Good. It's good. I don't suck dick, but if you told me your dick was salted caramel, I'd probably have it halfway in my mouth and go, I don't know if I could. I thought about it. It's tempting, but I can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there's some viewers that are gonna love that. So I'm on the no sorbet diet right now. I'm down to 0 carbs and 0 fats since I talked with S2H in your absence on Blood, Sweat, and Gear this week about how things went with the show. I'm sure everybody who's watching this now knows I didn't nail it, man. I think I overcarbed, A. I think I wasn't lean enough, B. And C, I wasn't dry enough. So all those things together, I took third out of 3 guys. So it wasn't a pretty day. Nonetheless, it stung. But I am moving forward, and I'm busting ass because I've got 4 weeks. I talked to Shelby about it. He said he thought I should lose about 5 more pounds. And So that's what I'm shooting for in the next month. And I figure what better way to do that than to take my 30 minutes of cardio, AM fasted, and then double that. So I'm doing 30 AM fasted and 30 post workout. I was doing only about 60 carbs on my average days. So I just pulled all those carbs out, and I pulled all the fats out for now too. And I'm just going to ride that train until the wheels fall off. And
Right.
then I'll eat some carbs. So
Right.
we'll see how it goes, man. But
at least you didn't place 4th out of 3. That, I mean, I'm just trying to tell you, it can always be worse. And the funny thing is, we spoke briefly about it. And I was actually surprised, when you talk, and it was such a stupid comment. So I apologize. But, when I say something or someone says, seriously, even typing that and sending it, I had to go, clearly he's serious.
Oh, when I told you I got 3rd out of 3?
Yeah. You said it didn't go well, or it couldn't have gone worse. And my response was just so, seriously? Like, what the fuck do you even, no, I'm kidding. Ha ha ha. I won the whole show. No one does that. So I apologize for that. But it was just, I think I was trying to emphasize like I was just floored. I was like, oh shit.
Hey, it
but
says a lot more.
The crash and burn, everybody, it's a bitch. It sucks. It's fucking miserable. I know, but we've all done it.
Yeah.
You know what it makes, and tell me if you feel this way or not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I still say that it's worse when you're kind of in, and I hate to use the word public eye, but I mean, people are watching. And even though it might not be, thousands of people,
right.
You're under the microscope. Not only do people want you to do well, but they expect you to do well, and they're disappointed for you when they're not. And it's this much of being this much. And I want people to understand that I'm not trying to draw these huge parallels, but
right.
Imagine what an actual celebrity feels like. Someone is really in the public eye, and they aren't able to come through. And base that on how you feel, or I might feel, when you only have a handful of people, or 100 people that care and are following you, and you feel like you're under the microscope. I would imagine it's really a shit ton of pressure. I mean, I felt that pressure earlier this year as it built closer and closer, and then the disappointment of, holy shit, I got a lot of people pulling for me here who wanted to see me do well, and I've got to pull out. Yeah. So we've all crashed and burned. I mean, that's kind of, that's what happened. But I think the difference here, as cliche as it sounds, is you're going forward, thank God, because imagine if you had to live with it for another year because it was the end of the season and you didn't have another show, or you couldn't do another show for whatever reason.
I could do worse next time, Skip. There's always that.
Absolutely. I mean, we all think it's as shitty as it can get, but that's not true. But you're able to, you have a chance here to, you've accurately assessed what happened, to the best of your ability in your situation, and you're going to rectify that. And, the only time I would beat you up is if you come back again in 4 weeks and fuck it up again. No, but it's a learning process, and you almost have to fuck something up to be able to, it just never goes right all the time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you prep a lot of people, if you have done it 50 fucking times, you're still in that learning process. And, you catch yourself going, well, I'm going to try this. Well, I'm going to try that. That's what we do. That's how we learn. That's how we extend our knowledge base and our experience base. So, what you did wrong or what you didn't like and you don't think worked. So you're going to come back and you're going to try to clear those things up. And I have little doubt that you'll do that and you'll feel better in 4 weeks. I guarantee you're going to work your ass off.
Oh, I am already, man. I haven't eaten any carbs since Saturday. And,
exactly.
And I'm just killing it, as the kids would say. I got my second cardio session done today. You know what I discovered? I discovered Xfinity, the Xfinity app for my phone. And I've been watching Pawn Stars. You ever see that show, Pawn Stars?
Yeah.
I've been watching Pawn Stars while I do my cardio. I never watched TV in my life while doing cardio before. I always listen to podcasts. Maybe I shouldn't be like giving this idea to people. They're gonna stop following advices.
Podcasts.
Yeah. Only watch podcasts. No, I started watching that, man, and I'm like hooked, and I watch an episode and then my cardio's over. And the only other time, I never really watch television. So for me, I mentally connect television with like sitting in the chair with the recliner up and the air conditioner hitting me. It's like I'm always in a really good mood if the TV is on, because it's very rare that I'm like actually hanging out and relaxing and the TV's on. So it kind of tricks me in a way. You know, it's like, oh, Pawn Stars is on. Life must be good right now. This is all right.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. Cardio fucking blows.
Yeah,
if my wife said sex was cardio, I probably just, on principle alone, would not want to have sex anymore.
I'm done. You would have no kids. There would be no kids, anything, right?
Yeah, it's not all negative.
Oh, I want to back up, too. I think that when you wrote seriously, that conveyed so much more than just saying, I don't believe it. Or you know what I'm saying? Like I just thought about it. It's something that we do, and by writing that one word, you expressed your disbelief. You expressed you expressed that you were sorry for what happened and that you were on my side. It says a lot. So don't knock yourself. I think it's like a trope that we probably use within our society, and it means so much more than just what the word is. So
I still feel bad because I know if I'd read it, I'd be like, oh. I know what he means, and it's deeper than this one word. Yeah. And I didn't just use one question mark. I think there were 2 or 3.
I think there wasn't there?
Yeah, I had to emphasize, like if you were reading it, it would be Chris Griffin going, seriously? No way.
Yeah.
So I apologize anyway. I get that you took it the way that I meant it, because I really was. I was like, whoa. And it's funny because then in looking back, I'm thinking there's nothing on his Facebook. Like maybe it just went so well, that he's out having. Like,
when people do really well, they usually post something.
Or somebody else does.
Yes, or somebody else does. Yes. I've had a few friends this year that they've gone to do a show, and I've been really excited for them, and then I don't hear anything Saturday night or Sunday morning, and then I've just learned not to ask. Just don't ask. And so
or they post, but there's no placings mentioned.
Yeah.
It's this kind of self-serving diatribe that is more like, well, I learned a lot about myself. It starts off like that. It's like when I hear I've learned a lot about myself this prep, I'm like, oh, you failed.
Yeah.
It didn't go very well. And I've done it. I mean, you try to. I think what happens is when it doesn't go well and it doesn't go the way and I don't even care if it's really even winning or not. You cannot win and it can still go well. It depends on perspective. But when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, we just tend to look for, what did I gain from this? Like, I need to pull something positive from this. And I think that's where it comes from. So I laugh and say, and kind of poke fun, but I get why people do that. And I've done it myself because it's such a huge investment in time and money.
I was just going to say that you need to justify the several $100s you just spent on this, plastic trophy, if you even got one.
Exactly. So I think it's a natural thing to try to find everything you can to come away, from the situation and have it be positive. So, I mean, I get why people do it. It's predictable. It's cliche, but
so what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I have this sword now. I should have brought it. Hell, I can bring it right now. Hold on a second.
She's so hot.
So it's one thing to fail. It's another thing to be given
an awesome, cool thing for it.
Yeah. So this is
you failed, but here you go. Here's some really cool shit.
Yeah, I got some cool hardware to always remind me of my failure. But it is pretty badass, though. I do like these swords. They're nice swords. So
yeah,
I'll keep it, I guess. And you know what though? Here's my thought, Skip. I have no idea how the next show is going to unfold, and I could take last place, but God damn it, I'm going to be as fucking lean as I goddamn fucking can. And if I can do that, I don't care. I will be happy and I'll be satisfied as long as I can be just gnarly up there. That's the goal now.
I wish more people had that perspective.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who come in, kill it. They top their condition, their previous best and their size and fullness, and then they take second to someone who legitimately beats them, and it's just the worst fucking thing that's ever happened in their entire life, and they're depressed, and it's not a chemical imbalance. They're just depressed because they're insecure.
Yeah.
And it just becomes they scapegoat their prep guy.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Oh, God, I've got to work with that. I knew I should have worked with that other guy. This is just not, I didn't get first.
Should have hired Shelby, not Skip. Skip.
Exactly.
It was the Skip load. That's what did it.
I don't even know if it would be Shelby. It could be. It could just be the guy who charges $300. I could have saved this money.
Oh, yeah.
I should have gone with that guy who took 7th and competed 9 years ago. What the hell was I thinking?
So this brings me to our topic of the day, which is a very, very timely topic. And the topic is warm-up shows. We've never directly talked about warm-up shows, Skip. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people do warm-up shows. What are your so we're going to cover a lot of this, but here's some of the stuff I want to talk about. I want to know, have you done a warm-up show? What do you think of warm-up shows? What do you think of your clients doing warm-up shows? Were you successful at your warm-up shows, and have you ever totally shit the bed on a warm-up show?
Oh, I've never shit the bed. That happens to other people. That doesn't happen to me.
So this is my first experience with doing a quote-unquote warm-up show. And actually somebody got on Facebook and said, they probably don't follow what I'm doing. And I posted, and it stung, man. It stung to... And like you said, I knew that there were people behind me, and I publicly talked about that I was going to do a show. And so I had to say something. And I made a post about my results, and I'm going to read you word for word what I said. I said, 3rd place of 3. As much as it stings, it was the placing I deserved, which I agree with. Congrats to the guys who placed ahead of me. This was my first attempt at a warm-up show. Normally I go in leaving no stone unturned. This time I was banking on good enough. And listen, man, that was my mistake. I banked on good enough. And in my life, Skip, I've never been given a gift in any of my placings. I don't have good genetics. I have to kill myself basically in order to hang, at the top end. And even be considered for, first call out or, a good placing.
Right.
And for me to go in and shoot for good enough, I got my answer, basically on how well I do on good enough. One guy pointed out to me that he said, what was this? He said, I never understood why people do warm-up shows. Why half-ass it? That phrase is a crutch, just in case you lose. Oh, it was a warm-up show.
Oh, nice.
So I don't think that he really knows, me, or that this was actually a warm-up show. But, it was. And that, I don't care whether he knows that or not. But I get where he's coming from at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like people can scapegoat that out. I can't argue with that, And there was a time in my life, too, that I've said, don't, and I think I've even told clients this, no, don't go in at 90%, put all your eggs in one basket and fuck their worlds up when you're, 110,
Right.
That's been my thought in the past. And, I changed it because I wanted to experiment. I wanted to get on stage and see how I felt this time around, get some practice with my posing, kind of work some jitters out, practice the carb up, practice the water manipulation, and just have fun because I figured I was already in good enough shape. Apparently I wasn't, but so what are your thoughts though? Tell me what do you think about the warm-up show in general, first of all?
I think it depends on the situation, and there's a couple big variables to me that, because I can be on either side of this. If you're doing and I agree that it gets scapegoated a lot. I mean, at least that, that part of what he said, I think there can be some truth to that. You have to know, it depends on the person, and everybody makes fucking excuses if they can. I don't want to say everybody. A lot of people make excuses when they can. But there is something to be said for a warm-up show. As an example, if your primary goal is a national level show and you need to show up almost as a formality, just like you show up and you're going to get a qualification, then to me that's I'm more in support of a warm-up show that way,
Okay.
because you're just doing it to qualify, and you really don't. What happens with warm-up shows is, and another variable, so that I don't forget this point because I think it's important, is how close the warm-up show is to the more important show.
What's a good time frame on that, Skip?
Well, and this is the other thing that, and people are going to think, oh God, you keep providing gray areas here, Skip. But I think the worst way to do a warm-up show is only at about the 3 to 4 week mark. If you get out farther than that, here's an example. I have a current client, great guy, and his big show is coming up in just a couple weeks, and it was a difference of about 7 weeks. Okay. And I want to use this example because I think that time frame is important. If you're going to peak, because I'm with you. I like to think, look, if you're going to do a show, I don't care if it's the Mr. Black Hawk, Colorado, and you're going to be the king of the casinos here, which if you lived here, you would know that's really not terribly prestigious.
Okay.
But I would still go balls out, make it convincing.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Know who's going to show up. You don't want to go halfway because, again, that for most people is not typically gratifying. But on the other hand, if it's 7 weeks apart, if there's a pretty big disparity in the amount of time that you're doing these shows, you're going to go from 100%, and then you have 7 weeks to, you're not going to maintain it. You're going to stay at 100% because you can't do that. So then the game becomes this big mess of how much to back off, how far to back off, and then turn around and amp it up, and knowing that you're going to respond the same way or how you're going to respond exactly. It's a difficult thing to do. If it's only a couple weeks or even a week, that's completely different. Plus, a warm-up show at that point, if it's only 2 to 3 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks, let's say that, you're not really going to be that far. You better not be that far off 100% anyway, because if your prep goes the way that it's supposed to go, though it doesn't always, you're going to be ready a few weeks prior anyway, and you're going to then be just making minor adjustments and tweaks as you come into those last couple weeks. Does it always go that way? Of course, it doesn't always go that way, but that's typically the plan. So how far off from 100% can you be if the shows are that close together, or should you be? So if you find yourself way off in a show, or if you call it a warm-up show, that is really close, a couple weeks from a bigger show, man, you got, whether it's you or me or anybody else, there's a situation created now that you're racing the 11th hour, and there's no other worse way to prep than that.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I still stand by the fact that you should always go to every show 100% if at all possible. But there are situations where you have to decide, is it? And the other thing that has started to happen that I don't like a whole lot, and this kind of feeds that guy's comment, because at first when you were reading this comment, I'm thinking, let me guess, this guy's never been shredded. He's got no jawline. He's got a hell of a fucking opinion. But that doesn't really matter a whole lot, because some of what he said, I do believe is correct. It does get one of the things I just drives me nuts in the sport, and it happened a couple years ago where it was a bigger issue than it is now. People were doing shit like, oh yeah, it's Monday morning and they're posting, I just walked into the show, on Saturday. And it's just this big fucking ego trip. And, I've known people personally who have done it. And I got to be really careful with this because I really like this guy. So I don't want to seem in any way disrespectful.
So do you want me to not put his picture up right now?
Yeah, not right now. Hey, but he is a great guy. So I'm going to preface it with that in case it does happen to seep back to him. But I was beat by him, and there's no fucking way. I'm not that good of a bodybuilder. Phil don't get me wrong. And it was not Phil. Oh, okay. I have been beaten by Phil. That one.
That's why I asked. Yeah.
And let me say this. It's not like I didn't deserve to get beat by this guy. But the point is, don't disrespect me that you're – and I know that it wasn't intentional. Don't get me wrong. But it's disrespectful to act like you walked into a fucking show and didn't do anything, and you beat me. Yeah. Because you didn't. I busted my nuts, and you busted your nuts, but you're fucking lying. Right. You may not have gone a full prep. You may not have gone 18 weeks, 12 weeks. Maybe you did it in 8 weeks because you're in great shape and you – but a lot of these people, and this is a couple years ago, not as much now. It's still happening, but not like it was a couple years ago. It was a trend then. These people are getting ready and starting, trend with a D at the end. They're getting ready and approaching their diet and their training as if it's a prep. The fact that you're not calling it and notating it as a contest prep doesn't make it any less so.
Sure.
So, they're saying, well, I walked into the show, I didn't even manipulate water or anything. Listen to what you're saying before you disrespect everybody that you just competed against who busted their fucking nuts. And basically, I mean, if I want to be real shitty about it, I would say, you know what? Basically, what you're saying is you're so genetically gifted that you didn't have to work as hard as everybody else.
Yeah.
Wow, you don't know this, but you're kind of taking away from what you did. You think you're making it sound like you're such a badass, but you're kind of taking away, because the rest of us are looking at it going, oh, it must be nice to have picked your parents so well that you don't have to work as hard as everybody else. So I understand I went off on a tangent. I don't even know how the fuck I got there. I'm going to use the fact that I'm medicated and I don't remember. But the point being, there just is this, it's kind of a, like you say, almost like a scapegoat type of thing. It's just a different mindset. So I say go in at 100%. I think no matter what the show is, unless there's a very obvious reason, which is funny too, because the guy that I took into this show 7 weeks out, even though we said we were going to hold back a little bit, we ended up only holding back about this much.
Yeah.
We knew we could improve. And the things that you learn from a warm-up show are so crucial, because you have to be really lean and really close to your top condition to be able to see exactly how those last-minute things work. You could get an idea, and you could say, well, I'm 11% instead of 7%, so I can kind of see how the water works and how I fill out and stuff. But when you're really, truly close to 100%, that's where you're going to see the relationship to filling out, sodium, water, maybe even if you use a diuretic or whatever else. I understand that it's very trendy to claim to not use a diuretic, but then use plenty of them. So
I didn't use one this time around, and I should have. That's what I have to say about that, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have.
I throw that out there because that's another thing that apparently everything's on my nerves today, but there's a lot of people who claim far more than do, that claim they don't use any diuretics.
Yeah.
And when their client says, well, I didn't know you used diuretics, just on occasion, this is an exception.
Yeah.
When other people know that that's what you do. So,
I used to use them more. Like, I used to use them religiously for myself. This is like 2010-ish. And I followed a Dave Palumbo's protocol for Diazide. I've gotten away from it, and that's because I've been able to get lean enough that I haven't needed it. In this case, I could have used it. I really could have used it. I could have used a half a Diazide at night and probably another half in the morning. There's no question about it.
You don't have your hindsight glasses on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that diuretic use isn't as excessive as it used to be, because I think that people tend to see that there's more of a relationship with being fuller and getting into the type of condition that you're supposed to be in, to where it doesn't have the same fact. Sometimes a diuretic, or I won't even say a diuretic, getting your water plan right can sometimes, and I don't encourage it and I'm not advocating for it, but it can sometimes make up for, or a little bit of ground, if you're not as lean as you're supposed to be. But at the same time, it can totally fuck you up too, and make you look far worse than you're.
That's what I was afraid of. I was afraid I was going to just look fat and flat, and so I left it. But honestly, I think I could have made it. I could have been good with it. That's been my issue in general. I feel like a lot of times with diuretics, when people end up flat on them. I think a lot of people do in general. And so
I think my best advice, if I just had to narrow it down to one specific, very concise piece of advice for diuretics, I would say this: if you're on the fence, always go for being fuller and bigger than to try to do last minute things to try to get drier and tighter. Because a lot of times what happens is, as soon as you flatten out, you look like you're not in condition.
Yeah.
So, and as a judge, I'll tell you, even though I might prefer the look of someone crisper and drier, before anything else, it's a muscle show. So if you give me someone with shitty conditioning, but retarded conditioning and no muscle, it goes to the muscle guy. Because this isn't the most important thing is not about being shredded and having no muscle. It's a muscle or a bodybuilding show first. So the guy with the, and, that pisses off a lot of people. And I'm being honest when I say condition to me, as far as I'm concerned, is damn near everything, but not if you don't have muscle.
That makes sense. There was a guy at the show that I did in middleweight, absolutely shredded to the bone, as you could imagine. I think he was probably 6'2".
Oh.
6'2" middleweight. Imagine how, small he had to be. Dude, he was shredded I'll show you pictures later. Like this guy, it was nuts, man. But, that's case in point right there. He obviously, at 6 foot or whatever, he's going to need to be heavier than middleweight, no matter how shredded he is,
Yeah. And he probably played to his strength. I don't think he was a big guy that dieted away to nothing to get shredded.
Right.
He was probably not much to begin with. And he knew, that's what I did. That's what most people do. If I were naturally a wide structure and put on muscle, I would be much bigger than I am, and I would have pushed that strength.
Exactly.
But I knew that I'm like, I better find a way to get shredded because I ain't impressing nobody with these genetics.
That's me too. That's me exactly.
Yeah. We go with our strengths. And we tend to prefer the physiques that emulate how it's relatable. I guess.
Yeah.
You don't typically find a shredded, like the shredded guy. If he were, say, 5'6" and shredded, he's probably not going to be a Nasser fan.
Who's your favorites? What guys do you really look up to in the history of bodybuilding?
I think the one person that had the most impact on me in my last 30, whatever it is, 4 years was Rich Gaspari.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
It just, that was just someone who at that time had taken conditioning and arguably the sport of bodybuilding in a different direction than it was going. And I just remember just being in awe that this guy, and what did he weigh? 205? I mean, he turned pro at roughly 200 pounds and was all of a sudden the second best bodybuilder on the planet, and was pissed off that he was the second best because he thought he should have won. But it wasn't an era of conditioning, even though he took the sport that direction.
Yeah.
He single-handedly impacted me more. Is he my favorite physique? No. I'm a pretty physique fan. I'm not a current fan, if I'm being completely honest, of many people outside of the 212 right now.
Who did you like for the Olympia? We never talked about that, just out of curiosity. Out of what
in the regular lineup?
Yeah. Out of what we had in the regular lineup, who would you have given it to?
Well, I don't know if
I'm getting way off on a tangent.
Yeah, no. I don't know if I would have necessarily. I don't think that Phil Heath was undeserving with the current standards in men's open weight bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I would just say that even without picking someone off specifically, to me, classic bodybuilding or the 212 is far more appealing of a look to me. The open division to me is just. I don't want to say it turns my stomach, but I would say that to try to emphasize my point.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed with where it's gone, but that's an old guy saying old shit.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that all these new divisions are out there because it allows the look that some of us prefer. I say a lot of people to still remain in the sport and be judged and be able to compete. Without it, you would probably have these guys in physique. I mean, that's how it was going. Now the physique guys are changing classic bodybuilding, which I think is awesome.
I agree.
I used to think that the 212 was kind of like, it's a Franco Columbo. He's going to get up there and he's going to lose the overall to Arnold, so it doesn't matter. Somebody said the other day that it would be cool to have the 212 compete, even though they wouldn't win, to compete for the overall just for not the theatrics part of it, but just for that comparison.
For the entertainment,
I think that they deserve to be compared. And I think that, I don't want to say out of respect, but maybe that plays a part too. I think that it would be a nice addition
it would be cool
to the Olympia to be able to.
It'd be fun.
Don't you think? Is that a contact lens? I thought you were
I just
crying.
lost the contact. Yeah, I got so emotional about that.
What are you poking over there? God, you're a head case.
Yeah.
I think that. But specifically, who I would have liked to have seen win. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know. It sounds shitty. I don't know that I care. I like the look. I know that sounds bad. I like the look of the. I just like more of the classic. If you give me a small waist.
Yeah.
A truly good, even Lunsford, I think looks great for, in comparison to everybody else who's so blocky.
Yeah.
I think he's put together well. I think Jose Raymond, for a really, really big guy, is put together well because he has a relatively small waist too. But even more so, there are a lot of amateurs that I'm impressed with. Matt Porter has a couple guys. What's his name? Ruffin?
Oh yeah, Terrence Ruffin. He's amazing.
I think
he's out of this world.
And I just look and I go, you know what? I'm 47, all bromo. But if I wanted to look like somebody, I would want to look like somebody with a small waist like that.
Yeah.
That to me is incredibly appealing versus being weighing 40 more pounds than he is and walking around like a brick shithouse. I'm sure he looks huge standing next to him. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But that look is more appealing to me. The physique guy who was crossing over, Santi, I think looks awesome.
Looks cool, yeah.
I think he looks great.
I'm getting way off track here, though.
I know. I am too. Kind of rambling.
I've always been a conditioning guy too, and not for the look of his physique, but just the level of wonder and possibility that it brings to my mind. I like Munzer. He was one of my guys, Andreas Munzer.
Yeah.
I think of him, and I just think about how far you can take it. Yeah. That's kind of my.
He went there.
He did, yeah.
But I get what you're saying. It is so different. And even being as old as I am, I still like the freak and unique component. It's not like I completely dismiss that. Yeah. Even with Munzer, he had that freak unique size / retarded condition, but he didn't have that nasty midsection. Yeah. And to me, that's the most unappealing part of bodybuilding these days is just the midsection. I could deal with the mass freak and all that. It's just the midsection. And I'm not going to trash Phil or anybody, Kai, whatever, when they can't control their midsection because it's a byproduct to the game they're playing.
Sure.
They didn't create. I think this is one of the things the fans lose when they, hate on Phil or hate on somebody in particular. It's not that bodybuilder's fault that they have created that look. They're going after the look that bodybuilding has already dictated. Phil Heath is not dictating the future look of the sport.
Yeah.
Phil is playing the game within the parameters that open bodybuilding has already set for itself as a whole.
Sure.
It's not Joe Mannion. It's not Joe Weider. It's the sport as a whole, and the fans are just as responsible because they want them bigger, they want them freakier. And how the fuck are you going to do that without creating a goddamn bigger gut?
All right, I was trying to reel you back in here unsuccessfully.
While I'm talking, I'm actually thinking, I'm like, I know he's rolling his eyes because we're just going to continue to go down. There's a lot to be said there. I think that's the hard part of the topic.
Yeah.
It's something that could go on for a while, but and I think we're on the same page. It just, yeah.
So tell me though, back to the topic at hand with warm-up shows.
I don't know if I can do that.
Have you had a successful warm-up show in your day, Skip?
I have. I don't typically compete in successive shows.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. And it's not because I tried it once and I got the shingles. I'll just be honest with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think from there, I knew the impact and how difficult it is. And there'll be people who say that it's not that difficult. And there are people who do it all the time. That's cool. I'm in such a different spot now than I was before. If I was still competing to get as good as I could and, or chasing a pro card or whatever, then I would probably do consecutive shows. But it's just not – it's something I came away from a long time ago because I had such a bad situation. And I think that a lot of people just don't really understand that even one show, the impact that it has on your immune system and your body as a whole, the amount of drugs that most people are using, the envelope that they're pushing, to string it out for a couple shows is just it's tough. And I'm fighting another tangent here, but I have another topic when we get done that I would love.
Perfect.
Show, yeah.
Excellent.
It's difficult, and then you have those same people on the internet that are, talking down how steroids aren't that dangerous and steroids haven't killed even one person. Yeah. And I think that statements like that are incredibly irresponsible, especially when that person might be having current health issues themselves. I find it blatantly irresponsible. And it's disappointing to see. But again, that's another topic and another tangent. But I did not do the consecutive show thing. And coming back to the reasons of whether you go in 100% or not, I always felt like my investment was 100%, and that way I was able to keep it that way. Did it always go right? No. Did I crash and burn? I crashed and burned twice in 2010 because I was convinced I was a heavyweight. And funny enough is I still like that look of that show better than any fucking show I've ever done before in my life, because I felt like, wow, you just look like a bodybuilder. You're big, you're full.
I want to see those.
Not as tight as you used to be.
I want to see those pictures at some point. I want to see what those look like.
Yeah, I can do that. And it was more from. I wasn't as tight from the front as I needed to be, but it was from the back where it gave it away, because at that point I had started. As soon as I crossed that 40-year-old stage, as soon as I hit 2010, it did start to show that that disparity between my front and back conditioning was pretty.
Mine's always been big. My disparity between the front and back. It's always been.
I always had the disparity, but it was bigger.
Yeah.
And it was it was almost at that point. I'm like, you just can't. You're just going to have to just always push it to be shredded, or it just is not going to work. And it didn't work. I mean, it clearly didn't work. So the pictures you'll see will likely be from the front, because I didn't take a lot. I have them. I know I've got them. But I did. I like that look. I weighed in at 207.
Nice.
And I did also miss the cut that year. It's hard to be a prep guy and you miss your own weight cut. There were 7 other guys who missed it, and we all missed it by about 1.5 pounds, which was way off. I mean, and I remember thinking to myself, how in the fuck could I possibly do that? And I still, to this day, and I know this sounds like a giant scapegoat, that's cool, but I do firmly believe that with so many people who missed, and it's the only time I've ever missed, that I do think that scale was off.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I know.
That. It's a very, very honest admission, because I know I'm going to be judged by that statement, and I still made it. There are people listening who are going to be like, "Oh, he went there," but I do.
So you missed it, but you said you. So were you attempting to go for light heavy?
I actually was, because I competed twice.
I see.
Yeah. And the funny thing was I had gone as a heavyweight early in the year, if I remember this right. I don't want this to be wrong, but I went the heavyweight, and I knew that I was off, so I was coming back to get under the cutoff, and knew that the difference was anywhere from 7 to 10 pounds. I don't know what the differences were with how I loaded and stuff like that. That plays a part. So to miss it after having that kind of a crash and burn, or my version of the crash and burn, it didn't make sense. It wasn't. If I would have done it first, that would have been different. Yeah. But I was so in tune. It would be like you coming back now and coming back and like fucking something stupid up when you know you're going balls out now because you've got a fire into your ass. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it's less likely because you're watching everything so closely. And I've never missed it. In fact, not only do I not miss it, but I come in within a 1/4 pound of where I know I'm coming in. So, I mean, it's not like, oh, yeah, I was 3 pounds under. And 7 other people missed their class at that.
That does say something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I could be wrong. I could just be not owning it or whatever else. But I think that's what happened. And the reality is, a smart promoter, which is not to imply that my promoter wasn't smart. There was probably a mistake somewhere, whatever. But a good promoter who's on top of things will make sure that their scale is in the competitor's favor by about 1 pound.
Yeah.
Because as a promoter, you don't want to show where you have, 10 or 12 guys who are not in the weight. They're at the bottom by 1/2 pound.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
You give the competitor that slight advantage.
Yeah,
you just do, because it makes your show better. It makes the competition better that way.
Yeah.
Than to have have a ton of people at the bottom of a class, and then you've got everybody bitching. And it also eliminates any, with bodybuilders, you got to be careful, because you got to eliminate whiny, complaining type situations. And if you do that then you eliminate that as just one more variable for them to complain about not winning and not placing the way that they're supposed to.
Sure.
I'm not necessarily saying promoters need to, bow down to what the competitors want, but if it's something so minor and you get the people into the classes that they're shooting for, it just helps the process that much more.
All right. Well, listen, I don't know if people are going to enjoy this program because I'm just starting to think not everybody competes or is into competing like you and I are. So I think we're going to thin the crowd with this episode. But hey, what the heck? This is what we do. So this is what we're going to talk about, right?
They may respond to my depressive segment just fine for the first half, but yeah, it's that very well could be. Competition doesn't suit everybody, and I think sometimes those discussions can get a little bit boring. I would agree with you.
Well, I'm going to go put my contact back in, and it's time for me to eat some more tilapia.
I should probably shave.
Yeah, you might wanna. Might not be a bad idea. When are you getting back in the gym?
I don't know. Define back in the gym.
Like,
No, I'll be back in. I hope to be back in on Monday.
Right on.
Yeah, the prednisone needs to, well, by then have worked its way out, and I could probably go back tomorrow, but I'm not I was supposed to be in New York City with my wife, having a good time. I'll probably play the poor me victim card for another few days, eat a burger or two, and I'll be back at it Monday. I'm more concerned about coming back and actually being motivated than I am just coming back and going through the motions. So I got 7 weeks until we cruise with the family. I can't show up on a Carnival cruise fat and obese like everybody else.
Well, that's a reason to get in shape.
Yes.
You do, I'm sorry, if you do what?
I'll walk with a cane if I do. If I'm just really fat, I'll just take a cane and I'll act like everybody else there.
It'll be good, man. I think that'll be good motivation to get you back in and get you moving again. And man, I appreciate you coming on the show. We still don't have a name for it, or do we? Are we going to call it Skip and Scott Don't Give a Fuck? I mean,
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck either. Well, I guess that means it's unanimous.
IDGAF.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Hashtag IDGAF.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I will talk to you soon, guys. For Skip Hill, I'm Scott McNally with Advices Radio. Skip and Scott don't give a fuck, I guess.
Don't give a fuck.
All right.
IDGAF.